one of the most enriching experiences of my life was doing the night fellowship in science journalism at MIT. And I did that smack in the middle of my experience reporting on Keystone. Part of it was because I was a film major. So I took, exactly one science class that was literally called Physics for Poets in undergraduate. So I wanted to talk to real scientists. And what I learned spending 9 months really just paid to talk to scientists was something that helped me understand where climate reporting has failed. And for that matter, where a lot of climate communication overall beyond journalism has failed. It's because they still call the theory of relativity a theory. Scientists are so loath to speak in the sort of direct, hazeless, prescriptive language that good journalism and communication often demands. And I'm not mad at scientists about it, but I do think there's a fundamental mismatch because the public is so susceptible to a lot of alternative messages, in part because the science, it's easy for you and I to understand what that means. To a lot of the news consuming audience, the science feels hazy. Okay, you're warning me that there's going to be something devastating and catastrophic, but when? You think it might be in 20 to 30 years. You told me that this natural disaster is probably connected to climate change, but not for sure. Now, I'm speaking not as Elana or Ray because we understand the nuances and complexities of it. I'm speaking as the average American voter, right? And I think the more that scientists can learn to speak more accessibly, the better we will do as a society about this. Right now, a lot of scientists are stuck in sort of these patterns, predicting probabilities, talking less about mitigation, as you described, and more about, here's what my modeling data says about the next generation. It's dire. I certainly agree with that, but I'm not the person who needs to be convinced. I was the person who wrote for the people who needed to be convinced. And I found that incredibly difficult to do effectively. And again, it's nobody's fault, right? You know what I'm saying? But when we talk about how climate is or is not moving forward, that's what sticks in my head. And frankly, that is why I ended up really enjoying Keystone XL so much. The main activist in charge of Keystone XL who helped defeat that pipeline, Jane Klebb, is now the head of the Nebraska Democratic Party, because she understood something that very few people who work on climate issues understand, which is you've got to get a coalition and treat it like a campaign. Jane stopped that pipeline because she went to Nebraska and got a bunch of super conservative farmers to come out and say they were against big oil. All of a sudden, what is essentially a climate issue, and that is why the progressive Jane Klebb got on board, became an issue that spoke to all kinds of people because of the kind of messages she was sending and the kind of allies she got. So that's why I fell in love with the story. I thought, oh my God, this woman, she figured it out. She kind of cracked the code, how to talk about these issues. And sure enough, she's head of the state party and a political rising star probably for the rest of her career because of it. But that sort of helps explain how I think about climate communication, hopefully.